Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. The Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friends sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Julie Pecarski, who will talk about weight loss and stress, the missing link between the two. Julie is a registered holistic nutritionist who runs online weight loss and energy coaching programs for high-performing women. She helps women lose weight, gain confidence, and help them harness their inner feminine energy to create more space and possibilities in their life. Julie is known as the anti-diet nutritionist. She believes you can still enjoy the things that you love in balance, and she teaches women how to just do that. All right, some interesting facts about Julie is that she's been practicing yoga for about 15 years. She's highly intuitive. In fact, she does oracle cards readings for her friends, and she's pretty spot on. She would call herself something like a modern day witch. Julie has also worked for 20 years in the corporate world, so she can resonate with you and with the ambitious woman who has a hard time managing their career, health at the same time. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, Julie.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I have my oracle cards.
Oh my gosh, I was just about to say, let's pull one out. Let's do it.
Pull a card. I'm telling you, I'm like, it's so funny. I get people all the time, friends of mine, and we'll get I'll even do it on a Zoom call, and they'll be like, wow, you were so spot on. But I mean, like, have you ever done oracle cards?
Kinda, yeah. Some friends have them and I pull them out. Yeah.
Yeah, like all my girlfriends now have it because it's like it's super fun, especially if you're trying to make a decision or you're not sure how you feel about something. I mean, it's nothing like totally woo-woo. It's just every card that you pick is going to be an interesting one. So this one's all about chaos and conflict, which is, I've never pulled this card before.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? I wonder what it means. So
chaos and conflict, huh?
Yeah, I know. Does that resonate with you? Do you feel like
maybe
like, whoa,
maybe
these days, how life is right now.
Everyone.
It's talks about, opposing forces come together to create a turbulent atmosphere. So sometimes I think this time of year is really, really difficult for people. Don't you think? Like holidays.
Oh, it's just hectic. December, end of the year, at the start of the year, It's just crazy.
It's so crazy. And I think that, you're in Australia, I'm in Canada, you've come out of lockdown. We're in a bit of lockdown too as well. And there's a lot of restrictions and people are feeling very, I think, conflicted where they are. I'm seeing like a lot of women who are changing paths and careers right now. Because sometimes this uncertainty kind of brings that up for them, right? So I'm actually not surprised by that card.
Yeah, it's interesting that you pulled that out, especially with the topic that we're going to be talking about today. I mean, stressed out, burnt out individuals, like there's so much chaos, so much conflict happening in them. It's like, should I look after my health? Should I look after me? Should I look after the business? What goes first? It's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you connect it to that, because it 100%, like I work with a lot of women. I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of women, even in your practice too as well, and maybe in your podcast. But as women, like we're always just so worried about other people and we take care of other people before ourselves. And then we put ourselves on the back burner, and then we're constantly working with this to-do list. And, it's just like, we can't just sort of stop for a moment and maybe take care of us. I had this client actually I was working with, and she, pre-pandemic, she would go to the gym. She'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the gym and work out. And obviously with all the restrictions that have happened here, she can't go to the gym because the gyms are closed, or she doesn't feel comfortable. And she still gets up though at 4:30 in the morning and just does whatever in the house. And I said, how are you feeling though these days? Do you feel really good? Like, do you have the energy to be getting up? And she's like, no, I just feel like if I don't get up at that same time, I am not productive. And I said, who tells you that? Like, it's we put it on ourselves, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was about to say, who says that? It's your own self-talk, isn't it? And you said,
exactly.
We put things in front of us, and like we act as if our business is a person, and we go, oh, that person needs to go before anything else, before me, before my health. But, individuals like yourself and like me, we're here to say, no. You're the most important asset in your business.
Yes.
In your household.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? I always say this to clients, the biggest relationship, really, not the best relationship, but the biggest, most profound relationship we should have is with ourselves, right? And if we don't have our health, what can we do? And I had like a client, actually not a client of mine, a colleague of mine, and she actually quit her job during the pandemic because they changed the structure of the job, and she knew she couldn't do it. Like it was not going to be possible, because she says, I didn't want it. Her father had gotten sick and unfortunately had died. And she just saw that as being the path for her. And she's like, I can't do it. So she ended up embarking, similar to you and I, in building our own businesses and working for ourselves. As much as that's not easy, it's just, she identified that one path was going to send her down the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. I resonate with the woman these days, for sure.
I love that. And I love how we started with the oracle cards and we pulled out, crisis and conflict. And it's like, all right, let's sort it out. Let's get your crisis and conflict out of the way by answering these important questions and get your health on track. I mean, before we get into there, I wanted to find out a little bit more about Julie, right? I wanted to know a bit more about you. So what have been the key turning points in your life to where you are now, to being a nutritionist?
Well, it's interesting because you and I were talking earlier. We both have been in the corporate world for a number of years. I've been in HR or operations for, I think, over 15 years. So a really long time. And I actually burned out several times, in my 20s and my 30s. And then obviously running into my 40s and realized I really wasn't listening to my body. So, we were talking about weight gain. Obviously, I had gained quite a lot of weight that I just couldn't understand. I was skipping meals because I was so busy, or I was restricting what I ate, or, I was over exercising and things like that, because I thought that's the way to lose weight. Wasn't the best way to do it, of course. But, I was exhausted. I had hormonal imbalances, and all of these things I'm still sort of healing from even today, like especially the hormonal structure and the exhaustion. Those are things that I typically have to continue to recover with. And we, like I said, ambitious women, we're always, focused on achieving that goal or getting through that to-do list and contributing. But, I've realized now that it's really more important for me to manage my energy a little bit more efficiently. And so that's really been like the focus of it. I mean, I think a lot of women come in for weight loss, and then they're surprised to find how much their energy changes. Their hormones balance, how much as a woman our hormones dictate our energy, our sleep, just everything. So it's something I find really, really interesting. It goes really beyond the weight loss too, as well.
So you went through burnout in the corporate world yourself, not once, but twice, a number of times.
Yeah, a number of times, yeah.
And then you decided to become a nutritionist to understand yourself. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I mean, originally it was to definitely address burnout. And then I ended up just sort of falling into weight loss, to be honest with you. And originally it wasn't the direction I wanted to go, but it's interesting. I was like 6 months into it, and I realized that, for a lot of women, obviously weight is connected to energy, and we all want energy, especially if you're a high performing woman. You want to be able to get up and go and, just reach your goals. But, it's goes to really confidence as a woman, right? Especially like, I got clients that are like, oh, I could fit into that power suit again that I haven't been able to fit in for 5 years. And then you see them feel that, and you just can envision them, walking with a lot more pride and confidence. And so it's interesting how it's so attached to confidence for women. And it's not, to me, it's not all about the weight loss. It is, the mindset that I work with too as well. And, believing that they can, achieve whatever they desire. It's really, it's just amazing. It's amazing to work with clients like that.
Yeah, I love that. I can sense your passion behind it, and I can sense your drive and being like, yes, come at me. Let's solve it. Let's do it. I love that. I could definitely sense that. So I guess, working in the corporate world and then coming through a whole journey for yourself, I guess success would have changed. Your view of success would have changed in your mind through that time. But what does success look like for Julie right now?
It's such a good question. And that's so hard because I still sort of get my mind stuck on like, what can I achieve in my business or in my career or whatever the case may be. But honestly, I think it's like, I think it's just, for me, success is when I feel satisfied. It's like that feeling of satisfaction. Working with clients that have really, amazing results that really aren't restricted by food, that they don't feel like they have to calorie count, or, measure food and things like that. Like I get clients like that thought that was the way to lose weight. And when they can be 30 days into a program and realize like, I just have to have the right nutrients on my plate. And if I want to have that chocolate and glass of wine or that pizza and glass of wine on a Friday night, I can do that without impacting my health. Like to me, that's a big win for me. So that's sort of like that satisfaction feeling that I'm always trying to,
I love that. And I guess a lot of people would want to work with someone like you who you see their success as your success.
Yes, 100%. I mean, it's very collaborative too, right? I tend, it's interesting because you can learn even from your clients, like, little things, because I get like an insight into their lives too as well. So, it's kind of, you create relationships with them as too as well with your clients, you get to know them and get to know their lives. And so that's always like an awesome thing too.
Yeah. It's like a fast forward relationship. It's like, tell me about this, tell me about this, tell me about this. And it's like
exactly.
Everything that you would usually find out in years with someone, being with them or, being friends with them, you find out in the first hour of seeing them.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Well, and it's interesting because a lot of the clients that I work with, I can work with for up to 3 months. So, and when you are like, I'm in daily communication with them for the most part. And so it's interesting. So you will, because sometimes a lot of times their families get involved. Like they might, the woman's on this journey of weight loss and then the husbands, you find husbands who have lost 10 pounds along the way and you're just like, oh, this is awesome. It's so fun.
Yeah. That's absolutely amazing. So let's talk about today's topic, exactly what you've been talking about. I mean, it's the new year, people have had Christmas and they are like, oh, I need to weight loss. That's usually everyone's, goal for the new year, right? So, today we will look at weight loss from a different view, I believe. So what got you so interested in specifically weight loss? I know you touched on it a little bit, but why specifically weight loss for individuals?
Well, I mean, for myself, like I've always been pretty body positive. And it's interesting because, like I said, I kind of landed into it. And I couldn't really I don't know, because I grew up with a mother who was so body positive and I didn't really have so many issues. And it's funny until like later in life, like as I got older too as well. But I think the thing that I love about it, it's a little bit about what I talked about earlier. So like a little bit more on that intuitive eating approach where like, I'm not necessarily telling you this food is bad. It's just, we got to focus on what I call the optimal plate with my clients that gives women the macronutrients, really like, healthy proteins and fats and carbohydrates and things like that are really going to let their bodies thrive. Where they're going to have more energy and they're going to sleep better. And so when you have more energy, you're going to move more, and understanding a woman's body a little bit better. I'm sure you've talked about, or yourself, like our cycle impacts our weight. Our cycle impacts our cravings. our energy, our sleep, like everything. So I just loved learning about that and realizing, that, 5 days before my cycle, or, the day before my cycle starts, you could probably gain 5 to 8 pounds. And so if a woman's stepping on the scale every single day, which she should never do, but if you are, and you don't understand your body, and you step on a scale and you see a 5 pound or 3 pound increase, and you just automatically feel bad, like that's, and then versus I coach my clients in understanding that. And then they're like, oh, so it's not me. It's not, maybe that half a bagel or half a muffin I had yesterday. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. Like, so I just love teaching women to really connect with their body a little bit differently, understand how the body works. It's weight loss, yeah, is certainly important, but there's a lot more things to it that dictate our weight too as well. Yeah. And that, teaching them a different way of eating that's not going to make them feel restricted too as well. Because as soon as we start restricting ourselves, then it's, a lot of other things can happen because of that.
Yeah. And you said you kind of fell into it. Sometimes in life, I think the most magical things happen when it's just, that's my journey and that's what I want to do. Because then it's so magical, because it's kind of like, well, I didn't really find the drive, but now I'm so passionate about it and so driven by it, which I can tell by you. And that you can also see, it's not just the weight loss. The weight loss brings so many things, which we're going to talk about. It brings so many things with it. So that's what I'm getting from you. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So all these individuals, all these women, even men that are ambitious and they just want to achieve so many things, usually they are highly stressed. And I know stress has been probably the most used word that people just, it's kind of like as soon as someone says stress, your brain just goes, oh, rubbish. Like everyone just like goes, oh, we're not going to deal with that because it's been so overused and we just overlook it, but we don't understand the importance of it. So what I would love for you to do is just, give us a little bit of an insight of how stress is linked to weight. Why does one lose weight while the other one gains weight? What is it?
Well, those were like two great questions that I'm glad you're asking. Stress does impact weight for sure. Now, keep in mind, like everybody is metabolically different, men versus women. I work specifically with women actually. So, which is the hardest to work with because we have this cascade of hormones. Guys are definitely a lot easier, but but stress alters, our blood sugar. We have this stress hormone, cortisol. Some of us may know what that is, but cortisol is a natural hormone we should have. It helps us deal with stressors in life. But if it gets too elevated, it can impact our blood sugar. And then, I ultimately provide a blood sugar management system to women to help balance that blood sugar so that they don't have all the cravings, I always say this to women, when you had a crappy sleep or you're stressed, do you ever crave a salad? Do you ever want to eat like a plate full of veggies and fruit? No, because, stress has that ability to alter our blood sugar where we really want the sugar and the carbs or the starchy carbs, like the potato chips and the pastas and the things like that, right? Which, again, really mismanage our blood sugar too as well. So that's ultimately, again, it depends too as well. If I'm a woman who is preparing for a presentation at work and I'm feeling a little bit nervous, anxious, about it, a little bit of stress, that's different than the woman who has this endless to-do list, 2 kids at home, has to provide all the meals and cook all 3 meals and pack lunches. And then, has to go to this stressful job that she has. She might skip her lunch because she doesn't have time on her hands. Right. And then because she's not feeling her best, then she thinks I should spend, an hour on a bike and spin for an hour and a half. when I'm already energetically depleted. And so ultimately, I mean, it's really just trying to help women, take a step back, of course, and you have to find mechanisms to, manage your stress. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you also have to have the right balance and the right ratios of food to help balance that blood sugar too along the way too as well.
Yeah, I love how you linked the stress with blood sugar, because individuals wouldn't really look into that and understand that blood sugar levels will affect their stress and their stress will affect their blood sugar levels.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I think that's a big missing link. And again, for women, it's going to be a little bit differently. Just again, because we have all these other range of hormones too as well. But, stress, spikes our hormone levels, our hormone cortisol. And then when cortisol is elevated, it spikes our blood sugar, and our blood sugar hormone is called insulin. I know you've talked about insulin before on your Instagram page, so I know you know all about that. But you know what? When we have those high levels of stress, and then that high levels of insulin, and then we want to just eat a muffin for lunch or breakfast, and then maybe a cheeseburger or sandwich for lunch, and then maybe some snacks in between that maybe aren't the most ideal. And we're just sort of packing on the sugar and those starchy carbohydrates. Our insulin can only recover so much and help manage that blood sugar. There's only so much of it to go around. And so then all that excess, blood sugar gets, converted to fat and stored away. And guess where it goes for women? It's usually that midsection, right? Which is, the place we don't want it to go. But that's ultimately how that cascade effect happens. And so ultimately it's, if you find yourself, you're holding a lot of that weight in that midsection, it's generally going to be one of two things: cortisol related, stress related, or insulin related, which is blood sugar related. But in most cases, it's both.
Yeah.
And so that's ultimately, if you want to know the physiology of it, that's ultimately where it's happening.
Yeah.
And so then it's crazy. So then you're like, you're craving all the things because your blood sugar's everywhere. It's either too low or too high, right? And if you're skipping meals, you have low blood sugar. So then by the time you get to dinner, you're like starving, right? So you may snack on potato chips before dinner, because you just need that quick release to make you feel better and a little bit more alert.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about skipping meals. Yes. Because a lot of corporate women, men, individuals, they just go, oh, that meeting is at 1. It's so much more important than my lunch break, than me being outside in the park, grounding, eating my food. This meeting is so much more important. So they skip a meal. And you said that clearly impacts their cortisol, their insulin levels.
100%. It's the, it's one of the things that I used to think was like the best thing to do.
I'll save my calories for later.
Yeah. Restrict. When in fact it can have an adverse effect. In fact, it can, instead of that weight loss that you're looking for, it could be more on the weight gain side too as well. And then, you know what, your metabolism is going to just get messed up, right? It's going to stall. Like when women say, I think my metabolism is dead. And then I ask them, do they eat 3 meals a day? Or like, what does it look like? A lot of them are skipping. They're skipping lunch, for example. And so I'm like, well, that's, that might be part of it. There's other like resistant issues you could also have along the way too as well. I won't go too much into that, but ultimately, if to help regulate that metabolism, you do need to give it the nutrition that it needs in order for it to function, and you fuel it so it can function properly. Mm. So it's interesting. I'll work with I had a client recently who said one of her aha moments was how important it was to eat like her at least 2 to 3, like her 3 meals a day. And she was like, I didn't realize how much of an impact that would have on my energy, how that would, of course, impact her weight in the long run. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I could add so much to that in regards to your sleep-wake cycle, in regards to everything. It regulates it all. Why can't you sleep? Maybe because you're not eating your lunch. Like, it's so like, it's yes. So I love that you're touching upon it all. It's not just, I'm going to skip my meal so I can have my calories for dinner so I can eat more for dinner.
Right.
You know? Which I used to think that. That's why I'm saying it, because I used to think that. I used to be there in the corporate world, sit there and be like, oh, I just won't have my lunch. I'll put that aside. That's about maybe 300-400 calories. I'll have that for dinner. And then at dinner, I would eat so much. And I'd be like, oh, like couldn't breathe. Like my body wouldn't be able to digest it because I didn't have enough digestive enzymes. Oh my gosh, it was just havoc.
Yeah. And I find sometimes when you do that, where you like put all those calories at night, of course, your sleep's going to be impacted. But I find sometimes what happens, like for myself, is that the next day I'm actually even hungrier. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, like I'll especially if I ate like a really starchy evening, like, you know, pizza or something. Cause I mean, I'm a nutritionist, but I'm also a real woman.
I'm a pizza lover.
I'm a pizza lover. And like, it's funny how like those really starchy things will impact you even the next day. And so I do teach women how to balance that out so that, you know, how, you know, the next day you're just not like craving all the things or really unfocused and things like that, where, you know, you eat the right ratios of food, then you feel like after a meal like that, which, you know, was an indulgent meal and you deserve it and you should enjoy it, but how you can really rebound the next day where you're still going to feel good and energized and ready to go. So it's interesting.
Yeah, just because it's a new day doesn't mean your body just gets reborn.
Yes. That's actually a really, really good point. Like, I mean, you know, it's like people say, you know, my husband says this sometimes where, you know, he'll eat something like a cheeseburger and fries or whatever. And he'd be like, oh, I'll just work it off, you know, in the gym. And I'm like, well, it's good that you're moving, of course, 100%, but you know, the quality of our food is going to impact us too as well. Like, especially if you want to live a good long life and you want to feel good and look good, the quality is really important too as well, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I know you touched upon this question a little bit, but what happens on a biological level when we're stressed out, and how does it link to weight gain? I know you spoke a little bit about cortisol, insulin. Is there anything else you want to add on to that one?
Well, I think it is like, it's also, you know, I think it is about the quality of food too as well. Like, I think that if you are, I'm going to give you some tips too as well, but I think it's just, if you are spiking that blood sugar and then you are eating a lot of highly processed foods, like, you know, I said, insulin, for example, can only handle so much. And so, you know, it's going to store all that excess and convert that into fat and store that in the places that we don't want it to as well. So, you know, you certainly still have to manage your stress levels. Like, you have to have a mechanism. I call it a recovery plan. For women, I help them to put together a recovery plan on how they can, you know, settle down after a long day and you know, really, you know, spend some time with themselves a little bit, you know, and take some care for themselves. So it's the mindset and the stress energy management coupled with the nutrition too as well. They really go hand in hand.
Yeah, I love that. And it's kind of like, who would have thought that, you know, me just taking 10 minutes to myself to breathe may help with weight loss?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, it does a lot. Like, it's interesting because you were talking about like the biological side of things. And one of the things that one of my programs really focuses on is creating healthy habits. So just getting a bit of a routine in, we keep it very simple right from the beginning because of that. But the other thing we talk about is, you know, why do you want to go there? Like, why do you want to lose the weight? And then, you know, another layer we add, because every woman is different. Like, it's a very much a personalized approach that I give. And, you know, there will be some women that don't believe that they will achieve the weight loss success that they want. And because they've been through a dozen different weight loss programs. And so they're trying something with me and they certainly see things changing. But I have seen women who never thought that they would just lose 20 pounds simply by writing like a Post-it note that's really empowering. Because a lot of times you actually have to change your thought patterns, your self-limiting beliefs about your body, your weight, your health, your life, whatever it may be. Like, I'm a nutritionist and a coach, and I do Post-its to remind me about what is possible for me, right? And so I find sometimes you can get, like, I have women who get the exercise down and the food down, but they're still like stalling on something. And they're still not seeing exactly what they want. And it always comes to what they believe. I've had clients who will pull out a dress that they really want to see themselves in, and will lay it out and hang it there for the whole program so that they could get to wear that again. And they do. And it's just like, you just need to like shift your perspective and believe that you can do it, and that you got to get the confidence to believe that you can do it. So definitely nutrition, but it's got a lot of what we're working on in our
that's definitely deep in a sense. And I've read in places and studied in the sense of individuals who do have more weight on them, it may be a protection. Would you protecting themselves from either being seen, having the attention on them being worthy, them being valued? Because if they've got extra weight on them, society will say, we're not going to look at you. We're not going to put you up at the front. We're not going to put the spotlight on you. So that's a way of them protecting themselves.
Yes. It's so interesting. You said that. I have a client right now, and she said that almost that exact same thing, where she doesn't want to be seen, like in that limelight. Like, she doesn't want to be, like coveting this dress, this flowy dress or whatever. Isn't
that red dress? She doesn't want to wear that red dress because the attention's going to be on her. Yeah.
Yes. And it's interesting that you said that, because that's exactly what I was getting with her. And I mean, it's a process.
Yeah.
That we're going through. But yeah, it's so interesting how that mind works. And you know what? Our mind is going to believe what we tell it. So if we're going to tell our mind that we're not good enough to lose that 10 pounds for our health and for our kids, or, so that you could, do travel and play with your kids or your grandkids, it will believe that. Mm-hmm. And you will never get as far as you want until you start changing those patterns. That's actually the hardest work. The working out, the food. It's the mindset that's the hard stuff, for sure.
Yeah. I love that. I love how we went down that little wheel. I love that. So the one thing is like, I know when I go through weight loss, and other individuals have gone through weight loss, people experience cravings, right? Can you explain cravings to us? Like, why do people crave things and why they come around, and how they can be stopped, or if they even need to be stopped?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like, I find it's if you're not sleeping adequately, it's that's going to be the precursor to cravings right there. So definitely work with sleep. Insulin levels are definitely like cortisol. That cortisol imbalance will definitely impact that, which will then impact insulin too as well. I think it's it's getting the right amount of nutrients on your plate that are going to help keep that blood sugar level. Like, we don't want blood sugar too low, and cortisol we don't want too low. I have low cortisol, so I've been high and low, so I know the difference. And then you don't want it too high. Insulin and cortisol, you don't want too high. You literally want them to be, level. Obviously, like, I know, circadian rhythm and cortisol actually emulate themselves, right? So our circadian rhythm, which is, you talked about the sleep and awake response. So, it's low, when you wake up, the circadian rhythm, and then it peaks, and then it goes down. And then obviously it gets, lower as the day goes on, because we're starting to create that melatonin to go to sleep, that sort of thing. Cortisol is the exact same. It starts like as a bell curve. So it'll be lower in the morning, early mornings, and then it grows throughout the day, and then it dips down. But if you are, your cortisols are too elevated and you burn off that cortisol and you end up like me, where it's like flat, that'll be a struggle energetically too as well. That's going to lead to cravings. So I mean, the way around it is really getting in. I think you're probably going to ask me about some tips on how to.
You just can't wait to get them out. You're like, I just want to get these tips out.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's just getting the right, it's just getting the right macronutrients in. And it really just depends on, your energy levels, what's your activity levels. And, it's going to be a little bit different for every woman. And you have to play around with it. It has to be very intuitive, how much you are consuming in a day, for sure. So
yeah, I love that. So it gives people a bit of an understanding why they may be craving. It's like, well, you're not sleeping well, your hormones are not in balance. Yes. What you're eating, all of these may be causing your cravings or even making them worse. So yeah, I love that. 100%. Before we get into the tips, which I know you're excited about, I wanted to ask you, individuals who have extra weight on them, extra fat on them, what are the actual disadvantages from it? Besides the fact of what society has told us, we should be skinny and so forth, but are there actual health issues related to if you do have extra weight on you, extra fat?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, very, very surface level. We've talked about energy and hormones, not feeling confident, not feeling comfortable. But obviously, if we don't get weight under control, there's like a cascade of things that can happen. And, oftentimes you kind of have to look at your family tree to see, what's happened, biologically, even in your family tree, because that, certainly you could be predisposed, but things like, of course, diabetes and insulin resistance, any of those, big blood sugar issues, any cardiovascular issues too, as well, is a big thing too. So it's, it depends really where you are, metabolically in terms of your weight. And I think really what your family history is too as well. I have a very big, history of cancer in my family. So, it's really important for me to, enjoy life still, but, be responsible with my food choices for the most part.
Yeah. So it's not just what we see in the mirror. It's actually what's inside, like what's actually happening in our cells when we have that extra fat, there's extra toxins in us.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, certainly in my programs, we do, a very mild, I say detoxification to a certain degree, where we're not like drinking teas and juicing and cleansing, that sort of thing. But, a lot of people, if they've had a very highly processed diet and, we're shifting to a very nutrient dense way of eating too as well, there is, like you say, it's detoxifying your cells too as well, and anti-aging too as well. We all want to live a good long life, so 100%. There's so much at play when it comes to weight too as well, that's beyond just the surface.
Yeah, and you said that right at the start, where you said that you were drawn to weight loss because it's not just about the weight that you're dropping. There's so many other benefits that come with it, feeling good about yourself, the spiritual part, but also, reducing your risk of heart disease, reducing your risk of diabetes, reducing your risk of cancer. But a lot of people don't really make the link. They just say, I want to fit into those genes by weight loss, but it's so much more to it.
It is. And, it depends on the program that you're in. I think the reason why I didn't want to go originally into weight loss was because of that exact reason. It wasn't just about to me, I didn't want it to be the superficial. And it's interesting because my program's it's so much more than that, which I'm very proud of, that's really, and that is why women do come to me, because there's a bit more of that balanced approach, and it's not restrictive, and we're not counting calories and measuring and all that kind of stuff, where there's a little bit more freedom with it too as well.
And that sounds amazing. That sounds, a program where you're not counting calories, where you're not really restricted, but you're still achieving your goals. I mean, most people are like, sign me up.
Sign you up. Exactly. And I mean, the thing about it is, and I think, any of your followers that are listening to it, is weight loss isn't linear. Like, especially as a woman, it's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. But if you have like the right program or coach or whoever you're working with, and you're consistent, as consistent as you can be, but, and still enjoy the things that you want, or, still enjoy the things that you love, you will get there. It's just like, to me, I'm like, this is not a 21-day program. Like, you're not going to lose 20 pounds in 21 days. That's not what we're after. What we're after is like gradual, and something that's sustainable and something that you can build into your life. Especially if you have like 2 kids and a husband and a dog and a career, and maybe, parents that you're looking for, like, let's create something that you can manage with the scope that you have.
Yeah, I love that. So let's get into the most exciting part. Let's talk about practical tips for the audience that's listening to incorporate for their weight loss journey, or for their journey to achieve what weight loss will give them.
Yeah, I think I'll give about 3. So, because I don't want to overwhelm. I think we talked about introducing healthy fats and protein into your diet. That's what is going to help keep that blood sugar in check. It's going to reduce cravings. It's going to help you feel full. And typically, it depends on the woman, of course, what your exercise levels are. But, I generally aim for like a palm-sized amount of protein. Might be a little bit more for some women. When you're looking at fat, we're looking at healthy fats, of course, your avocados and olives and nuts, seeds, hemp hearts, oils, all those great, awesome oils like avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, MCT oil, which is a coconut oil too as well. Those are really great. Protein, I think, are pretty straightforward, but we want to go like, you can eat chicken breast, go for chicken breast, but don't make chicken breast your staple, because it's just not as nutrient dense as maybe, and it depends, what form of eating you go for, but, like a nice piece of fresh salmon, really great and saturated, healthy saturated fats, and, your darker cuts of meat that are of high quality. So, organic, grass fed. Eggs are a great choice. If you're vegetarian or vegan, your beans and lentils, of course, are great choices too as well. But don't overlook carbohydrates. Like, I think carbohydrates have gotten a bad rap. I don't know if you feel the same. It's like low carb, no carb, keto, that sort of thing. But carbohydrates are essential for 2 reasons for women. 1, sleep. It really helps for me. I tend to eat more of my carbohydrates at night, and it helps me sleep. So if you're a problematic sleeper, a little bit of carbohydrate at night is good, like sweet potatoes, grains if you can tolerate them. And it's also great for hormones. So it helps, one of the building blocks of our hormones, along with healthy fats too as well. When it comes to movement, I call exercise movement, because I think exercise is going to be different for women. Especially if you follow your cycle, which I do, and I coach my clients on it. If you are, in the throes of your cycle, your menstrual cycle, hitting, doing a 10K run is not going to benefit you. And if you're a stressed out woman with not a lot of energy, doing a 10K run is not going to serve you or your weight loss journey. I'll tell you that. I work with clients, and I'm very, very diligent about making sure that we look at their stress levels, and we pair movement based on that. So sometimes a lot of women will benefit. I've had women who have lost 15, 20 pounds just from walking. So it's going to look different for everybody. But if you are somebody who is really tuned into your energy levels, doing high intensity interval training is great for metabolism, and really great for hormones. Strength training and in particular weight training is really great also for those two reasons. It's great for women's bones as well. So I think helps to build testosterone as we get older, and we need testosterone as women too as well for all these amazing things. So that's nutrition, and that's movement. I think, from a mindset standpoint, I think that if you struggle with, seeing the possibility of, what you see yourself as in terms of your weight loss journey, I think that you have to do some work with that. And it can be as simple as a powerful affirmation, posting them in your place where you're going to see them, and start sort of changing your relationship to yourself a little bit differently. So I can give so many tips. It's crazy, but I don't want to overwhelm your audience. So nutritionally, get in your protein, fat, and a nice ratio of carbohydrates, plenty of greens, of course, vegetables are essential. Movement, pay attention to your energy levels, and don't overlook weight training and high intensity interval training. And then work with your mind as much as you can. That's the hard stuff, but it's the best stuff, really.
Wow, I love that. You've just given so much valuable information to the audience, because it may seem simple, but once you do, maybe 1 week you do the first tip, and then the second or third week
100%.
you introduce the second one, and then you introduce the third one. In a few weeks, you'll see the difference. You will be like, wow, I'm supporting my hormone levels. I'm supporting my insulin. I'm supporting my cortisol. I'm sleeping well. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And it makes a huge, huge impact. And I love the fact that you put in there, doing that 10K run when you're already stressed. You may get those endorphin rush and feel amazing for the next half an hour, but you are going to pay for it.
You will pay for it. Yeah, 100%. And I do see it all the time. Like I have clients that, have certain things that they really, really get right. But then, a lot of times, a lot of the women, these stress levels are out of control, and they need to tame that down. And we were talking about the circadian rhythm. I think one of the best things you can do to help manage stress is getting outside during the day, if you can, in nature, if not, just like wherever you are, because just being outside, being in nature, natural light, literally tames cortisol right there. And it's going to help you with your sleep later on in the day, because it starts to help produce that melatonin too as well. And so that in itself is like a game changer too, if your sleep is really suffering.
I love that. So now the audience is like, what? I go outside and I want to lose weight. This is amazing.
Exactly. 100%. I agree.
Unfortunately, the individuals that may be listening to this podcast that aren't business professionals, they're sitting inside. And that's not something that they do. Go outside, enjoy nature, eat their food, make sure they've got protein, fat, that they exercise, and make sure that they actually connect to their mind. Most of those things just get pushed away. So I'm so glad that you brought them up and mentioned them, just to remind them.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I work as a professional, as well. And especially somebody like myself who has very low cortisol. So I literally will take, if I'm at my office, I take a 15-minute walk just after lunch, just 15 minutes. And I go out and I do like a longer walk when I get home, but it's dark. So it's interesting how, if you can spend 15 minutes going to get your coffee at Starbucks, could probably take 10-15 minutes to just get a little bit of light exposure. So it could be, even if you have, I have big windows here, and if I can't get outside, it's just literally getting light exposure during the day is amazing.
Yeah. And there's so much we could add on to it and go into detail, but we are coming to the end of the podcast. I'm going to be, careful of your time, but to finish off, I ask all my guests, as this is the Natural Health Podcast, what is your best kept natural health hack, Julie? Let's share it with us.
Oh, I feel like it's sleep.
Is that because it's sleep time for you soon?
soon, in a couple hours. Yeah. I think sleep is underrated 100%. And if you're a high performing person, you need the rest. You need to regenerate your cells. This is where your brain gets regenerated too as well. That's essential. I I'm an avid faster. So, I'm sure you've heard people talk about intermittent fasting and things like that. I think fasting is really beneficial for health in general. I don't specifically do it for weight loss, but I do it more for energy. Certainly helps with metabolism and hormones and things like that. That's definitely something that's been, I don't think it's underrated. I think a lot of people do it. You just need to do it, properly and with some supervision too as well. But that's definitely, I think, my anti-aging secret at 43 years of age.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Definitely doing a log 43. If anyone's watching the video, this is amazing. Good on you.
Thank you.
I love that. So sleep and fasting. So you're together's two. Wow, we're just getting spoilt with your knowledge and expertise. I really, really appreciate that. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all this absolutely amazing information. And you have spoken about your program during this conversation. Are you able to give us a little bit more information if someone wants to jump on that?
Yeah, well, I offer a few programs that's really dependent on the woman, but my weight loss program is called ALPAS Living, ALPAS Living. But if you go to my Instagram page, which is Balanced by Julie, it will have all that information there. I mean, what I recommend for any woman who's looking to sort of change her health, her life, and looking for my program has a tremendous amount of accountability and coaching, which is probably why we have such a high success rate, is because we give a lot of support. And so if you have, anyone who's watching that's interested in hearing more, I just, ask them to reach out to us, and we're happy to get on a phone call and explain how it works, because I find a lot of people, weight loss programs, they're sometimes cautious or whatever the case may be, but we always say this, we're real women supporting real women. And so, if it gives people or women more comfort to talk to us, definitely. If not, of course, my website, go directly there and it'll tell you a little bit more about what the program is offering.
Amazing. And I'll put all that in the show notes down there so you can access that. And yeah, do follow Julie. She's got absolutely amazing knowledge and shares a lot of her information on her Instagram, on her website, and so forth. So I want to thank you for your time and sharing your expertise and your knowledge. I've had so much fun doing this podcast with you. So thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And I appreciate everybody who's listening too as well. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health.